Champions of Midgard was designed by Ole Steiness and published by Grey Fox Games as a worker placement game set in the distant harbor town of Midgard, where the old Jarl has just died, and Midgard is now under siege. And it's up to the players to place their workers in the various locations to collect warriors, collect runes, fight their various enemies, and complete their destinies, all in the best hopes of defending Midgard and earning enough glory to become the new Jarl. If you've been watching me for a while, you know that I absolutely love worker placement. It is one of my favorite mechanisms ever, so naturally I was excited to try this one out. Does it hold up well? Let's find out. I found the Viking theme of being these different clans going out and fighting to protect Midgard from the various mythical creatures to be pretty strong. The only big thing I found thematically disconnected in the mechanisms is why the Draugr is the best way to get gold. Now that could be because I'm just not that familiar with Norse mythology. It could have been that that's what Draugr were known for. I just don't know. But other than that, I actually found a lot of connection here. When you go out on the journeys, you have to make sure you have food so that you can feed your warriors, otherwise they're going to starve before they even get there. And the journey cards that are out there work really well, because when you go out into the open seas, most likely it's not always going to be smooth sailing. But you can mitigate that by looking into your destiny. The destiny cards allow you to look at the journey, see what's going to happen out there, which will let you plan for that inevitable encounter. In addition to that, there's also a nice connection with the mechanisms back at the town itself. If you don't try and go after the troll, it rampages through the board and everyone gets upset and everyone's blaming everybody for not helping out. But if you fight the troll, you get to lose that blame and pass blame on somebody else because you obviously helped out. They didn't. So you get to take some of the blame off of you. In addition to that, some of the little mechanisms with the worker placement elements also have some good connections with them. You have to pay gold and wood in order to build your ships. You have to spend gold to recruit new workers to help you. You have to pay gold to the merchant shops in order to get what they've got, although you only have to pay 1 gold for the merchant ship, which made me question how shady is this merchant. Even the warriors themselves I thought had some good ties to it. The axes are the most powerful warriors. They are the most likely to hit your enemies, but it's hard to get them, and they don't like to defend themselves. They're all about offense, which makes sense because they have no shields on them. While as the spearmen, they're like the middle of the road type of warriors. They want to do the damage, but they also want to keep themselves safe, but they're also a little bit harder to train. Whereas the swordsmen, they're the weakest warriors. They're not as likely to hit as maybe the others, but they're the easiest to get, which makes sense because back in the medieval ages, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but to my memory, the swordsmen were the easiest to get and the most common warriors in the Middle Ages. So the fact that the swordsmen, despite being fairly weak, are the easiest to get works pretty well. Overall, apart from that mini little Draugr thing, I found the theme of the Viking clans to actually work. Speaking of warriors, I found the components for the game overall to be very good. The dice are nicely engraved, which means that they're going to last a lot longer than simply painted on dice, and because they are having different symbols, you should be able to tell which ones are apart from each other and tell which types are which, even if you are colorblind, because these symbols on the dice are drastically different from each other. However, the player pieces, the wood and food tokens are slightly colorblind unfriendly because they're only differentiated by their colors, and there's not like any artwork on the player pieces or on the wood tiles to help differentiate them from the meat or from other players. So if you are colorblind, you might have a little bit of trouble there, but the tiles themselves are nice and thick, so you're not going to have any issues with that. There is a lot of symbology in this game, but the symbology is very easy to read and very easy to understand. The cards themselves are very well done. It is very easy to distinguish which cards are which from each other because the backs of the cards are drastically different from each other. Even on the small ones where they have no text on the back, you can still tell which one is which because the artwork on the cards is drastically different from each one. The tokens as well, very well done. I thought they were nicely thick coins and nicely, well, the favors themselves actually maybe a little bit thin. I think they could have made them a little bit thicker, but thin enough that I don't think you should have too many issues with them accidentally bending or whatnot. Overall, I found the component quality very nice. And while it may look intimidating when you go to set it up and get started, the game is actually not hard to learn at all. On your turn, you just place a worker in a spot and you take the action. Some actions do have it happen at different times, like the military actions where you go to fight. That is something you will need to remind people that you do not go and fight them right away. The most complex part of this game is the journey down to the bottom where you go to face off against the creatures in their homeland, because you have to first place your worker in a boat, whether it's your own or you're renting a boat, and then you have to move it to the section that you want to go on. Then after all the workers are placed, you then put everything you want to put in that boat on. Then you check the journey card to make sure everything is okay, or if you have to resolve something. Then you lose all the food, or your guys eat all the food rather, and then you finally get to do the fighting. So there is a little bit of complexity there, but other than that, this game is actually a pretty easy one to teach. And as for the gameplay, I found it to be incredibly fun. There is so much I enjoy about the way this plays out. For starters, there are a lot of different places to place your workers, and the best part, every single one of these places has some level of importance. For instance, the Destiny cards, not only do they give you a second way to earn points besides just fighting monsters, but they let you look at the journey cards at the bottom of the board and basically help you plan out what you're going to do for that inevitable trip down to the monster's homeland to face them. Also, the rune cards, not only do they give you 1 to 3 free points that you basically just get them just for a piece of wood, but also they give you a one-time bonus effect that you can use at any time, whether it's to double your coins or basically try to get better results in your die roll, whatever it is. You get a bonus effect, and even after you use that effect, you still get to keep the card and keep the points. There is a couple of these standard worker placement spots that you'll see in a lot of games, like go here to get the first player marker, go here to trade this resource for this resource, go here to hire some more people to work for you. But then there are the places that you get the warriors, and I gotta say, I love the idea of having there being different warriors being different dice. Especially the fact that there's more than one type, which means there's going to add a good amount of variety of ways to fight the different monsters, especially considering the fact that each warrior is different from one another. I'm also really glad that they added the characters with special abilities. That helps everybody feel like they're more unique to themselves. I haven't played it enough to gauge whether or not the characters are balanced. On the surface, it does seem like Guilford the Seaworthy is a little bit overpowered with not having to pay to take the merchant ship, but at the same time, his ability only applies in one spot that everybody has access to. So if you do go there from time to time, you basically render his ability mute. Because it's on a space that everybody has access to and anybody can go to that merchant ship, it does seem like it could balance itself out. Also, a very crucial aspect of a good worker placement game is to have a feeling of tension. That feeling of, I hope this space comes around to me and I can get this on my turn. If you don't have that tension, then most likely or not, you're not going to have a good worker placement game. And thankfully, this game has that tension. Even though there are plenty of spaces to put your workers and even some second chance spots to get some of the warriors that you'll need, you still got that tension of, I hope this space comes around to me. I want to go to this specific tent because there are 3 warriors there. I want those warriors. Or I really want to get these 2 gold. There are markets in the game, which I will get to later on, but I want these markets because I can get 2 gold from that, and that's what I need right now. With that, there is also that feeling of, what is the most important thing that I need right now? Of all the things that's available out there, what do I need to get first? That is what I go for, and this game has that feeling as well. But easily my favorite part of this game, which can be a turnoff for some, so keep this in mind, is the fighting the monsters themselves. Now, remember, you use the dice to fight these monsters, which means you roll them. And you can have a round where you plan constantly, you think to yourself, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, do this, do this, do this. And then we roll the dice, and luck just does not favor you. And that can be the case here. However, there is some mitigation to it. Like I said, the 3 different types of warriors with varying levels of success that can basically change your chances of getting an actual hit on the monster. There's also the horns that allow you to roll or re-roll any amount of dice that you want. So there is some mitigation here, but even with that, there can be times, and it has happened to me, where even with the horns and having multiple varying amount of dice, and the luck just does not favor me. So if you are a person who is not a big fan of dice rolling, then you may want to avoid this, because that is here, and even with the mitigation, it can still happen. Personally, it does not bother me at all. If anything, that actually provides me with a little bit more fun. It brings some more laughs. It can even bring some joy to it. The thought of me just having all these warriors here and I don't get a single hit. That, to me, I think that's funny, but I can see why some people can be turned off by that. In terms of tactics and strategies, the main way you're going to score points in this game is by slaying monsters, but thankfully there is different ways to go about that. For starters, there's different types of monsters. You can focus on the troll, making sure everybody else gets blame except you, because the more blame you have, the more points you lose at the end. You can focus on Draugr to get a fair amount of points, but also a good amount of gold that you can then trade in for favors, which you can keep to the end of the game, because that's another way to score points, or you can use them to help reroll your dice if need be. You can also try and focus on going for the big baddies that are worth a ton of points down on the bottom of the board, but you will need at least one turn to plan and then get everything you need in order to go down there. Or if you wanted to do, you can do some kind of combination of all of them. You can also go a little indirectly for some points by getting some of those destiny cards done, or maybe getting some of those runes. You can also buy your own ship and basically use it to head down there, which, by the way, buying ships itself can help get you some points. The game also does scale pretty well. I haven't played it with 2 yet, just to be fully transparent with you, but I found the game does work best with 4, but it also does work well at 3. In terms of length, it might go a little long for some people. The box says 60 to 90 minutes, and I feel like even with the full knowledge of what is going on, I feel like 90 minutes will happen more often than not, but I don't think it would go longer than that. In terms of replay value, there's a lot of replay value here. For starters, not every single character that you use in the game is going to get used. Even with the full complement of 4 players, there's still one character that's not going to be used, as well as the market tiles. You may notice that on the board, there are a few extra slots. Those are for market tiles that are actually shuffled and placed randomly in the various locations in a variety of military and economics. And there's 4 of each type, and not all of them are going to be used. In fact, I think at most you only use 2 of each with the full complement of 4 players. So there are some market tiles that will not be used in the game, which also provides a good amount of replay value and a nice extra little bit of flavor to the standard placement of your workers. Also, not all of the cards that are going to come up will come up in the same order. What I mean by that is because there's only 8 rounds in the game, that means there's going to be some runes, some destiny, some journeys, and lots of monsters that are never going to see the light of day, which may sound a little ho-hum, but actually there's quite a few monster cards that actually forbid certain warriors from being used against them. So you could have a game that has a set of warriors that may not see much use in that particular game, whereas maybe in another, they may see tons of usage. For example, in one of my last games that I played of this, there were a lot of monsters that showed up that forbid you from using the spearmen. Because of that, we kept avoiding using the spearmen and for a good chunk of the game, but it doesn't show up often enough that basically makes a certain type of warrior useless. You can still have a good chunk of monsters that allow you to use any warrior that you want against them, but having an occasional monster that shows up that forbids a warrior from being used against it does provide a good sense of replay value, because it's not going to be the same standard of, oh, here's a Draugr, oh, here's a Lindworm, here's a little wolf. Instead, you'll find a couple instances where you'll find like, oh, here's a Draugr. Oh, but I can't use swords against him. Or I can't use axes against this Lindworm. And that just provides a nice little addition of flavor to the game as well. Overall, this is a game that I have had constant success with, and I have always had a blast every time I brought this out. It's a game that I'm always looking forward to playing again. I mean, it's in my top 5 games of all time. If you are looking for a worker placement game to play with your family or for your game group, because like I said, it's not that hard to teach, then this is definitely one that I would definitely recommend if you don't mind a little bit of dice chucking. I'm going to give Champions of Midgard a 9.5 out of 10. So with all that said, I want to know, what are your thoughts of Champions of Midgard? Let me know in the comments below, and maybe we can even have a discussion. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. If you want to hear more of my thoughts on different games, or if you just want more videos, make sure you subscribe to the channel for more tutorials, reviews, and unboxings. Thank you all as always so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.